San Diego Comic-Con at home is now over, but that doesn't mean it's the only one. We've got DC FanDome coming up, possibly New York Comic-Con, and other cons going into 21 might have to change their strategy and go digital. So what I was curious to know from you guys is, what do you think the lessons are that other cons can learn from San Diego Comic-Con, what they did right, what you think they need to improve in the future?
It's nice to have all these great panels and this access and all this new content to go through, but it needs to have some pomp and circumstance. I don't even know exactly what that is, but this weekend it felt like a dud. It felt like if you walked, you didn't know it was happening. It needs to have a little bit more life to it.
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to say they need to prioritize the fan experience a little bit more. It felt a lot of times we were just watching promotions for things, and it was missing that spontaneity and that fun of like the fans getting to ask questions and interacting. So hopefully there's a way to do that going forward.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing that felt missing. As much as you sort of dread when you're actually at a convention, like the spontaneity of a fan Q&A is always like, you never really know what you're going to get. But that's also part of the magic of a Comic-Con. There was none of that. Yeah, like if we're going to start seeing more and more of these conventions taking themselves online simply because they have to, because of the state of the world we're in, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned there in remembering like why it's being done in the first place. It is for fans to like get a sense of fun and experience out of this, and that was the one big thing missing at SDCC this year.
To both of your points, Cheryl and James, like Cheryl, you said, it felt like these are a bunch of advertisements. The dirty secret of Comic-Con is that everything is an advertisement.
Everything is advertising.
But it's more fun, usually.
But it is, no, totally. But with that in mind, if all of these things are going to be pre-produced and pre-recorded, lean into that. Like, make them pre-produced. Like, the production values need to be upped. So it can't just be a recorded Q&A that's dropped into YouTube as if it, were a lecture for like remote learning. Shoot it more conversationally, particularly with the larger studio things that clearly have like a budget behind them. The studios really need to, if this is going to become a part of the new normal needs to like step its game up a little bit, right? I was deeply bored by most of the panels this weekend, totally. All the people who were on the panels were clearly bored. You weren't being held hostage in hotel rooms and then trotted out to talk on stage. They were in their homes and they were like, oh my God, what am I doing? So like, I feel like the work that needs to be done needs to be focused both towards making the fan experience something that's interesting, but also like making it feel worth the talent's while. It's all very much, because again, it is just a bunch of people getting together to be like, I'm really excited to go buy some stuff. So with that in mind, like we really have to sort of try to make this as fun an experience as it is. Otherwise, you're thinking to yourself, why am I sitting in my apartment on a weekend watching trailers?
Yeah, Keanu Reeves can't be on every panel.
We could try, though. We could try.
I think the other really big thing, especially with Comic-Con 2020, was that a lot of the big players just were not here. And whether that is a larger move of companies doing their own conventions, I mean, obviously Disney already has Star Wars Celebration going on in D23. Now Warner Brothers is doing this DC FanDome thing. These conventions need to make a concerted effort to keep those big players with them, because that is one of the biggest draws. Obviously this con, there was no Hall H, there was no big WB, Universal, Sony, Marvel presence, and that is a big hit for them.
Yeah. I mean, they had a couple TV shows, like The Walking Dead is always big at Comic-Con, and that to me was the one thing that kind of felt Comic-Con this year was that Comic-Con always has the Walking Dead panels in Hall H on Friday, and this year they did all their panels back to back to back on YouTube on Friday. So yeah, that was one of the big things they had, but even that, like, it just goes to what we just said. It just lacked all that energy.
But something that we haven't brought up, there's also the argument to be made that neither the studios nor Comic-Con's organizers wanted the con to be particularly good, because then the question going forward is, how does Comic-Con justify its existence in the future once we aren't living through a pandemic that's killing people, right? If this year had been like a resounding success, and then Comic-Con organizers are looking at all that lost revenue, it's like, oh no, we've sort of put ourselves into a corner, which is unfortunate, but like this is what happens with like, this is how the industry's evolving, technologies are evolving, and we all sort of have to be constantly cognizant of the fact that things change.
They also only had a few months to put this together, right? I mean, pandemic sort of started in March. Comic-Con held on to the fact that they might have a thing until like June. So even if they had 4 months, the fact that they got all this together in 4 months is kind of impressive. If Comic-Con 2021 is still virtual, they'll have a whole year to really, really up the game, I think. So I think that's a big player too.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those, times that we're living in kind of situations, but we're making the best with what we can. And we do want to thank all of you for joining us from your homes for San Diego Comic-Con at home. We want to make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Ionine Staffers, hope you're all staying safe out there. And fingers crossed for a vaccine in 2021. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.